It's such a beautiful day here in Southern California. I thought I'd shoot this from my garden. I find a garden a very wonderful metaphor for life in general. I was out here working in my garden over the weekend, and it brought some things up for me. So what's the first thing you see when you see a garden? Do you see the beautiful flowers or the wonderful healthy plants, or do you see the weeds first or the problems? And how's this like life? What do you see first in life? Do you see the problems that you have to deal with, or do you see the wonderful things that are going on in your life? All of the things that are working. So for me, in the past, I thought life was pretty tough, pretty difficult. I lived under a cloud all the time. And it wasn't until I discovered that there was another way of thinking about it that my life really changed. I can see life as a problem to be solved or a wonderful adventure to be lived. Today I choose a wonderful adventure. Life is for me in all ways, and I try to learn and grow from every situation. So I was out here working in my garden. I was weeding my garden, and there was a section of it that I hadn't gotten to in a long time, so there were some really tall weeds in it. So the first thing I did is I went through and pulled all of the big weeds. And I find that that's very true for me in my life too. When I first started to work on myself, when I first started my inner healing journey, I had a lot of big chunks, big weeds that needed to be pulled. One person told me once I was like hugging a cactus. I was all prickly. And so I went to some great seminars. I went to the University of Santa Monica and got some really deep healing. And I handled the really big pieces. So I pulled all of the big weeds first. And then I stepped back and looked. And it looked pretty good. It looked a lot better. And that's how I felt too after I started doing the work. After I got these big chunks of anger and resentment out of my way, I felt a lot of relief. But then as I stepped back, I noticed that there's a lot of other things that need to be handled too. So I went about working on those. So in my garden the other day, I started pulling all the small weeds. And so I found the appropriate tool to use in my garden on the small weeds. It's this little tri-hook thing here. And it's really good at digging up the soil so that the weeds can be pulled easily. So in my life I have a set of tools I use on a constant basis to get the little weeds in my life and pull them. One of them is the self-forgiveness process. Another is a reframing of whatever issue I'm going through. How can it serve me? What can I learn from it? How can I grow from it? So those are just a couple of the things I use to handle the small things. But then I came to a spot in my garden that there was a little palm tree growing there. It apparently had been planted many years ago, and it was cut off at the top, and then it was becoming visible again. And I find that very appropriate for my metaphor in the garden here. You know, I had a choice of just chopping off the issue, the root, the weed from the top, and it would look pretty good for a little while. And we all do that to some extent in our lives with things. You know, I get a headache, I'll take an aspirin. But what's the underlying cause of that? Is it stress? Is there something in my life that I'm not handling fully? So we sometimes deal with the symptom and not the root cause. In this case, I wanted to get it out at the roots, so I went and got a shovel and dug this thing up from its roots so it wouldn't grow back. I didn't want it growing in this part of the garden. And I find that true with my issues too. If I have a really deep problem that I might be working with, I go get the appropriate tool. In my case, in the beginning, I went to some self-help seminars, and I went to the University of Santa Monica, a great experience. So when you have a issue in your life that just might seem a little bit overwhelming at times, who do you go to? What tool do you use? Do you have a coach? Do you have a trusted advisor that you talk to? I used to think I had to do everything myself, and at some levels that kept me safe, but it kept all of my issues stuffed down inside, and I never really dealt with them. And it was later that I discovered that life is so much easier and so much better when I have a team. I find as many people as I can to help me move forward, to assist me in my journey in moving forward. It's so much more fun to work with different people. I don't have to hold all of this stuff inside of me. I can enlist assistance from all different kinds of sources to move my life forward. I have a business coach. I have a wonderful partner that we process each other on a regular basis. And this is such a wonderful tool to move forward, having a team to work with. So who's on your team? Do you have a coach to help you with all of those big weeds that you may have in your life, or even the little weeds? Do you have somebody to help hold you accountable and move you forward? It makes it a whole lot easier when we have a team. Well, it's beautiful out here today, and life is pretty beautiful when you see it that way. And so from the garden in Southern California, I hope you've enjoyed this, and I hope you join me again.